Good morning, Year 5. This is day 2 of our final text of the half term on Bear Grylls. So day 2 means paired reading, which we're going to get into very shortly. But before we do that, as always, the first thing we do in any subject is our do now. So let me reveal the do now to you, and you will be able to pause the video then and complete either on the printed worksheet or in your books. So here's your do now. Day 2. Pause the video here and we will mark when you are completed. Okay, so let's have a look at the answers. So, have a pen or a pencil in your hand, ready to mark your work before uploading to Seesaw. Number 1. I had to obtain money from the bank in order to invest in a new business venture in a shop on a remote tourist island. It felt like a privilege to me, as this was something I always wanted to do. Number 2. The destructive encounter ruined some of the territory the Vikings had invaded. So, quick revision of our words from yesterday. Make sure you've ticked or fixed them before uploading to Seesaw, and now we will begin our paired reading session. So, just let me get the text up here. Now, as always on a Tuesday, I will read quite a bit and you will join in as well. And don't forget to record yourself reading as well so that we can hear your brilliant voices on Seesaw also, as I know so many of you did last week and it was great to hear. Okay, so Bear Grylls' Epic Expeditions is the name of our book, where he talks about some of his journeys and some of famous journeys done by other explorers in the past. Now, like I said yesterday, if you can't remember, just don't panic, as I have cut different pages in and out and we're jumping around the book a small bit, so don't worry too much about that. Okay, I'll start and then you'll be able to take over very shortly. Bear Grylls, Epic Expeditions. We live on a magnificent planet with so much to see. Since I was a child, I have always felt the pull of the wild, so it means that he wanted to be out in the wild, he wanted to be outside, he wanted to be adventuring. I've been lucky enough to have had the opportunity to go on some amazing adventures in some fantastic parts of the world, often to very remote places where only a few humans have ventured before. On my adventures, I have followed in the footsteps of some epic explorers who led expeditions into the wildest and most remote parts of the world for the first time in history, blazing a trail that future adventurers like me have followed. My expeditions have taken me face to face with some of the most magnificent creatures on the planet. Sadly, many of these creatures are now at risk if we do not take steps to protect the planet. Okay, so now it's going to be your turn. So you're going to read Protecting the Planet, you're going to read that subheading, and then you are going to stop at Endangering Animals. Okay, take your time, focus on reading with fluency, reading with expression, go back and self-correct if you must. There's quite a few tricky words here that you need to take your time over. So you're going to read from protecting our planet down to animals. Okay. Unpause the video then when you're ready to continue. Okay, excellent work. It's my turn again. If we want to continue going on epic expeditions like the ones in this book, it is vital that we look after our planet. Vital means crucial, vital means important. Vitally important. It is so important. Making sure we leave everything as we find it and respect the natural world as much as possible. That's the next page. And then we jumped up here, so that's kind of our introduction from Bear. Then we jumped up to this section on page 16 where he begins describing one of the journeys they took. So we're on across the plains. So as you can see, this is a plain. A plain is just a really big open area, big open field. Homophone of the word plane that flies in the sky, spelled differently as well, and obviously has a quite different meaning. A plain is a big open space. So I'm going to read here. When the river ice broke up in March, the corps left Fort Mandan. The keelboat was sent back to east, 6 new canoes and 2 pirogues were taken west. The expedition passed through treeless plains, thick with buffalo and beneath gigantic cliffs, today known as the Missouri Breaks, which Lewis described as beautiful in the extreme. So the picture here are the Missouri Breaks that Lewis described as beautiful, underneath the cliffs, full of buffalo. Buffalo is a type of animal and that you'd often find in North America. The open plains are the open fields. Okay, so let's read about going across the plains with Lewis. It's going to be your turn, so you're going to read again from the subheading, the title, Across the Plains, and you are going to stop at geese. Okay, pause the video here and continue reading. Excellent, well done. Really take your time with this, as there's lots of difficult words, so make sure you're fluent and make sure you self-correct if necessary, as I will do when I make errors too. Okay, let's continue. Most days, Lewis walked along the shore with Seaman, his dog, making observations of animals and birds, and making notes that he later used when drawing maps. In August, one of the men, Sergeant Charles Floyd, fell ill and died. He was buried beside the Missouri River, and a nearby stream was named the Floyd River in his honour. Named after him because of his exploits or because of what he had achieved. The explorers then continued north through the lands of various Native American peoples, including the Yankton, Arikara, and Teton Sioux. With the weather growing colder, they decided to halt in the territory of the Mandan Indians and build a fort where they could spend the winter. Okay, now we go to page 17, and you are going to read this entire section called Among the Mandan. So you're going to learn about the Mandan tribe, that Native American tribe, from here down to here. Then once you're ready to unpause, I will continue. Okay, well done. Bear says, so this is a quote from Bear. As the expedition moved west, they had increasingly frequent and frightening encounters with grizzly bears, which the men had never seen before. Lewis was chased 73 metres by a bear weighing more than 136 kilograms. So a couple of words to explain. Increasingly frequent means they had more and more frightening encounters, meetings with bears. So more and more meetings and conflict with bears. At Fort Mandan, Lewis and Clark hired a French-Canadian trader, Toussaint Charbonneau, as a guide, mainly because his pregnant wife, Sacagawea, was a Shoshone Native American from the Rocky Mountains, and they knew she would be helpful there. So when they were with the Mandan tribe, Lewis and Clark were quite clever, and they hired a guide from the tribe because they would know the land, they would know where to go, and they would be able to help Lewis and Clark on their expedition. Okay, so on to page 18, Over the Rockies. So before we begin reading, we can see the map here giving us context of where they were travelling. The map above shows the routes taken by the party across the Rocky Mountains. So the Rocky Mountains are quite mountainous, obviously, and they are quite cold as well, so there have been lots of snow, as you can see here from the map. This is the route they took, and the straight line means the outward journey, the broken line means the way they took on the way home. And also you can see the dates as well that they reached the different camps and different settlements. Okay, it's going to be your turn to read again. So you're going to read from Over the Rockies here, and you are going to stop at month. Okay, so you're reading a little bit more this time. Okay, again, take your time, work on fluency and self-correction. Okay, pause the video here and then unpause when you've completed that. Okay, my turn again. They then entered a range of mountains higher than any they had ever seen, the Rocky Mountains, at a place now called the Three Forks. Three rivers met from the Missouri. Okay, so it was called the Three Forks because three rivers came together at that point like a fork. They followed the right-hand fork west, but soon realised that they would need horses and local knowledge to get across the mountains. They knew the Shoshone tribe could help, but frustratingly could not find them. Finally, on the 13th of August, Lewis located a Shoshone war party and with Sacagawea's help obtained horses and guides who led the corps over the rest of the ranges. So what that means is they knew the Shoshone tribe would be able to help them as they had knowledge of this area, but they couldn't find them and they were incredibly frustrated and annoyed by this. But then Lewis did locate a war party, and with Sacagawea's help, that woman, they got horses and guides and were able to complete the rest of the journey over the Rockies, over that mountainous range. And our final page, again you can see the map here in more detail the different points where they went for. They were Great Falls, they were at Lemmy Pass, and the Shoshone villages here as well on August 13th when Lewis found them. Okay, so you're going to read this section and then I will read the final section. So you're going to read from beyond the Three Forks down as far as territory, which we know means land. Okay, pause the video here and read away. Okay, well done, and I'm going to read the final section. Heading west from Great Falls, a course skirted the highest peaks by following the Jefferson River, crossing Lemmy Pass, and then heading north up the Bitterroot Valley. But from the Traveller's Rest, they had to climb over the rugged Bitterroot Mountains. Okay, and that's where we leave Clark and Lewis, and where we leave Bear for today. Let's just have a look at this, and I'll explain this graph to you. So this is the Rocky Mountains here, and this is the journey that they were travelling. So here they hadn't travelled at any point. At 160 kilometres they were at this point here, somewhere between Great Falls and Bitterroot Valley. And then on this axis you can see the amount of metres, or the height of the mountains. So when they were at 160 kilometres here, they were at about 2,000, a little over 2,000 metres in height. So the mountains were quite big. And then you can see the different points in the mountains, the Bitterroot Valley, the Bitterroot Mountains, and the canoe camp, again getting lower here, less than 1,000 metres up. Well, at that point they would have travelled almost 480 kilometres. So if you'd like to pause the video here and examine that graph a bit more, then please do. Otherwise we're going to go on and look at some of the questions for today. So, just get my questions up and then we can begin looking at those. So because it's only 3 days of reading this week, because you've RE day on Thursday and an Inset day on Friday, I've kind of mashed up all the questions into one sheet today. So we're going to look at word meaning questions, a bit of true or false, some comprehension, and then an extension. Now, I'm going to model the first word meaning question. I'm going to do it with you. Then you are going to complete the word meaning questions and then stop before going any further, as I will model some more for you. Okay, it's going to be my turn to do the very first one. On page 6 it says, I've been lucky enough to have had the opportunity to go on some amazing adventures in some fantastic parts of the world, often very remote places where only a few human beings have ventured before. What does the phrase, only a few human beings have ventured before, suggest? Okay, there's a lot in that. There's a big quote from the book, and then it asks me what a certain part of that quote means. So only a few human beings have ventured before. I am going to circle that, and I'm going to reread the quote, thinking about what I can see and visualize in my head. I've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to go on some amazing adventures in some fantastic parts of the world, often very remote places where only a few human beings have ventured before. Okay, so I know it's Bear who's talking here because it's on page 6. I can see that he has gone to fantastic parts of the world. He feels lucky. And now here we come to the crucial part. Often very remote places. Okay, we know that remote places mean where nothing is around them, or very few things are around them. And only a few humans have ventured before. We know venture is like taking a risk where we do not know the outcome. And only a few human beings have ventured before. So I can imagine Bear going to places out in the wild that very few people have been before. Okay, so that's what I have in my head so far. I'm going to look at the options of the answers to see which one matches that the best. Okay, only a few humans have been on an adventure. Not many humans have been to these parts of the world. Not a lot of humans have been on an adventure. Some humans have been on adventures before him. Okay, right. I think it is this one, because not many humans have been to these parts of the world would match up with only a few human beings have ventured before. So only a few have been there, only a few have taken the risk of going there, because I read around the quote and I know that it's been to remote places. So I'm going to circle this one, as that is the best option, and that is the answer. Okay? That's the first one done for you. You are now going to pause the video and do 1, 2, 3 more. If you have the worksheet printed, fantastic, you can go and do it on that. Otherwise, you can write down the answers in your book as you've been doing all along anyway. You are not to go on to the questions yet, which are down here. You are to leave it at this one, as we will mark together, and then we will look at another question together after that. Okay, so pause the video here and go and do your word meaning questions. Okay, well done. Let's have a look at the answers. Okay, page 16. In August, one of the men, Sergeant Charles Floyd, fell ill and died. Which explanation is closest in the meaning to the phrase fell ill and died? Okay, and it was became sick and died. Page 17. Among the Mandan. The Mandan lived in large earth lodges, each housing 20 or more people. Which is closest in meaning to housing? Fitting, containing, accommodating, or living. In this context, it meant containing. Be careful of the context. It's not an exact synonym. It is not an exact definition of the word. It's how it is meant in the context of the sentence. And then page 18. In the following sentence, what does the word located suggest? Finally, on the 13th of August, Lewis located a Shoshone war party. And the answer to that was, he found the war party. Okay, so you can tick or fix those four. And then we're going to go on and look at the questions now. Again, I will do the first one with you. Okay, so the first one. How long does Grills spend training for big expeditions? Now, I know that that is a literal question because it says how long, so I need a period of time as my answer. So I'll underline the key words. How long does Grills spend training? Again, suggesting time will have to be my answer for big expeditions. And page 6 gives me a big clue. So I will go to page 6 and I will skim and scan the text now, looking for my key words of how long, spending, and big expeditions. So I'm skimming and scanning. I'm not reading in full, I'm just looking over it. We live on a magnificent planet with much to see. Since I was a child, I've always felt the pull of the wild. I've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to go on some amazing adventures in some fantastic parts of the world. Very remote places, only a few human beings have ventured before. On my adventures, I've followed in the footsteps of some epic explorers who led expeditions into the wildest and most remote parts of the world, blazing a trail. Okay, nothing is mentioned about time here. So there's also another box on page 6 that we're not to forget. When you're going out into the wild, preparation is essential. I will spend months training for big expeditions. Okay, that relates to my keywords here. To make sure I have the essential skills to travel. So the only thing that is related to time in this answer would be months. So I will spend months training for big expeditions. Does that make sense as an answer? How long does Grills spend training for big expeditions? Yes, months makes sense as an answer. So I'd write down months. Okay, he spends months. He didn't give a specific period of time, but he did give a unit of time, which was months, and that is what the question asked for. So you are going to do number 2, 3, 4. You're going to answer this true or false statement, and then you're going to work out what type of text it is as well. Now, you will also complete the extension before we come back and mark, and I will explain the extension to you now. Bear Grylls says that before going into the wild, preparation is essential. Based on this text and inferring from what you know about different climates, if you cover the biome section and geography, what kind of preparation would Grylls need before setting off on adventures? Okay, missing a D there. Okay, so what the question means is, he talks about some preparation in the opening sections of this text. He also, we know that he goes to remote places across different parts of the world which have different climates, as we discussed in geography. So you need to make a list or write a short paragraph discussing what kind of preparation Grylls would need to do before he leaves home to set off on these adventures. What kind of training would he need to do? What kind of preparation would he need to do? What kind of equipment would he need to gather? So think about that extension once you've completed these 6 questions. Okay, I'm going to pause you're going to pause the video here, and then you can come back and self-mark again before uploading to Seesaw once you have completed those questions. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. So how are humans being destructive? They are being destructive because they are destroying rainforests and endangering animals. Okay, that's how they're being destructive, that's how they're destroying, that's how they're causing chaos. Number 3, why did the men bury their equipment? So that was a why question, so you need to start your answer with because. Because they wanted to use it on the way back and to make the boats lighter. Okay, so there were 2 reasons there. Number 4, how do you know the Mandan were used to visitors? How do you know would normally suggest you need to give evidence. So if you see a how do you know question, you should give evidence to support your answer. They were used to visitors. Quote, their village served as a major marketplace for other Native Americans as well as French and British traders, so they were used to visitors. Okay. Again, if you don't have the exact quote, if you don't have the exact answer wording as me, you don't panic, because as long as you're saying the same thing as me, maybe in a slightly different way, that it should be okay. Okay, number 5, this statement. On the 17th of August, Lewis located the Shoshone tribe. That is false. Yes, he did locate the Shoshone tribe, but it was on the 13th of August. And then finally, what kind of text is this? It is an adventure text. And then the extension, that is up to you. I look forward to seeing your extension answers on Seesaw, as I do looking forward to seeing your do now and all those questions marked, ticked or fixed, so that we can easily comment on your wonderful work. Okay, I will see you tomorrow for our big question answer, but until then, have a lovely Tuesday afternoon. Bye.